Have you ever found yourself trapped in a relationship or emotional attachment that no longer serves you? Despite all your efforts to move on, it feels like that person or connection still has a hold on you, consuming your thoughts, emotions, and even your sense of self. If this resonates with you, then you're not alone. Many people find themselves caught in the cycle of emotional dependency, unsure of how to break free. But what if I told you that there is a way to regain your peace, your independence, and your emotional power? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the process of emotional detachment, a journey that goes beyond just letting go of someone. It's about reconnecting with yourself, rediscovering your worth, and creating healthier, more balanced relationships. By the end of this video, you'll understand why emotional detachment is not a rejection of love, but an act of self-love and empowerment. You'll learn actionable steps to break free from the grip of past attachments, strengthen your emotional independence, and create lasting peace within yourself. If you've ever felt stuck or overwhelmed by emotional attachments, then this video is for you. Stay with me as we uncover practical tools, powerful insights, and transformative strategies that will help you move forward with confidence and emotional freedom. Don't miss out on this life-changing journey. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. The first step toward emotional detachment is a profound realization that the relationships we form are never simply built on love or affection alone. Instead, they are intricately woven with a complex web of emotional patterns, old wounds, and, often, our deep, unconscious search for validation and fulfillment. This understanding is like a light bulb flicking on in a dark room. Suddenly, everything becomes clearer. It opens up a whole new perspective on our relationships, allowing us to view them not through the rose-colored glasses of love, but through a more honest, sometimes painful lens. We come to realize that in many cases, the emotional attachment we feel isn't really about the person we are attached to at all. It's about what they represent to us: security, love, a sense of belonging, and the identity we feel we need to hold on to feel complete. These are the things we crave, not necessarily the person in front of us. When we start to look at our relationships through this lens, it becomes shockingly clear. Much of the attachment we feel isn't a true reflection of the person we are emotionally tied to, but rather a reflection of our own unmet needs and desires. We might even begin to see that, in reality, we aren't seeking love from them at all. What we are seeking is a sense of completeness, a sense of being whole that we've never fully found within ourselves. This can be an incredibly painful but also liberating realization. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we have, at some point, placed our emotional well-being in someone else's hands. We might feel a surge of sadness, maybe even regret, as we face the extent to which we've relied on someone else to fill the gaps within us. But this awareness is also incredibly powerful because it opens the door to self-discovery. It illuminates the path to healing and growth, showing us that we are not inherently incomplete or broken. We have the power, the strength, and the capacity to fill those voids within ourselves. This is where the journey towards emotional independence truly begins. It's not an easy journey, and it's certainly not a quick fix. It requires deep introspection and consistent effort, but the rewards are nothing short of transformative. As we start to embrace this understanding, we can begin to reduce our dependency on others. We begin the delicate process of learning to cultivate a healthier, more loving relationship with ourselves, one that's rooted in self-love, self-respect, and inner peace. Emotional detachment doesn't mean that we stop loving or valuing someone. Not at all. It simply means that we regain control over our emotions, and instead of seeking something from someone else, we start to find within ourselves the things we once longed for from others. This shift, though, is often excruciatingly challenging. It asks us to face the uncomfortable truth that our emotional well-being has been far too reliant on external sources. It's easy to view this process as painful or even impossible, but I truly believe it's important to remember that detachment isn't about pushing people away. It's about reclaiming our emotional freedom and, ultimately, our power. Achieving emotional detachment is undoubtedly one of the most difficult, yet deeply rewarding, challenges we can face in our relationships. It's a journey that often feels like an inner battle, a tug-of-war between our attachment to another person and our yearning for emotional independence. But the key to emotional detachment lies in understanding the deep-rooted reasons why we feel so strongly connected to others. If we are ever to truly disengage emotionally, we first need to examine what has been keeping us so tightly bound to someone. What are the unspoken needs, the hidden desires, and the unresolved wounds that are driving this attachment? And most importantly, what is it that we're seeking from them that makes them so incredibly hard to let go of? To embark on this journey, it's essential to understand what some refer to as the hidden psychology of detachment. This concept, though profound, isn't widely understood. Emotional detachment is not simply about stopping our thoughts about someone or cutting back on the time we spend together. It's far more complex and layered than that. Detachment requires us to delve deep into our emotional landscape. It requires us to review our emotional patterns that have been formed over years of life experiences, heartbreaks, and unhealed wounds, and to confront the raw, painful truths we've been carrying. Often, these truths exist just beneath the surface of our consciousness, waiting to be acknowledged. They are the wounds we've ignored, the fears we've pushed away, and the longing for validation that we've been desperately chasing. But only by confronting these hidden aspects of ourselves can we hope to experience the deep emotional freedom and detachment that we need to thrive in healthy, balanced relationships. And though it is incredibly difficult, I believe with all my heart that this journey of self-discovery is the most meaningful and powerful one we can embark on. The second step in this deeply healing process is perhaps one of the most challenging yet liberating: recognizing our projections. It's something that many of us may not even realize we are doing, but it's a crucial step on the path to emotional independence. All too often, especially in relationships that stir up intense emotional attachment, we unconsciously project parts of ourselves that we haven't fully acknowledged or healed. These are the unhealed wounds, the unmet needs, and the hidden fears that we carry within us, but often avoid confronting. Instead of facing them head-on, we end up placing these unresolved pieces onto someone else, unknowingly assigning them qualities or giving them the power to fulfill needs that we feel are desperately missing from our own lives. This, I believe, is one of the most common and insidious patterns in our relationships, one that is not only painful, but also the root cause of many emotional attachments. We get so caught up in the belief that the other person is the answer to our unmet needs, when in reality, the real work lies within ourselves. For example, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the other person provides us with the security we are unable to find within ourselves, or that they hold the key to the validation we so desperately crave. We convince ourselves that their love will fill that void, that their presence will give us the sense of worth we long for. But this is where the true challenge lies, recognizing that our attachment often has very little to do with the person in front of us and everything to do with what they symbolize for us. They become a reflection of our desires, our insecurities, and our deep, unspoken longings. This realization is one of the most pivotal moments in the detachment process. It's a profound awakening, one that forces us to face the uncomfortable truth that our emotional attachment isn't based on the other person's inherent qualities. It's based on what we are projecting onto them. And once we can see this, we are given the power to ask ourselves a fundamental question: what are we searching for in that person? Is it love? Or is it something much deeper, perhaps the need to fill an internal void soothe our insecurities, or gain validation for our sense of worth. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. This questioning process is where the real transformation begins. It forces us to shift our focus from the other person and turn inward, which, let's be honest, can be deeply uncomfortable and even terrifying. It asks us to take responsibility for our own emotional needs, something many of us have spent our lives avoiding. We realize, painfully, that we are the ones who are ultimately responsible for our happiness and emotional fulfillment, not anyone else. And while this realization can bring up feelings of sadness, frustration, or even anger, it's also the beginning of our journey toward emotional freedom. This is the true starting point of detachment, understanding that it's not about abandoning the people we love, but rather learning how to stop depending on them to feel complete. Emotional detachment is not about shutting down, withdrawing, or no longer caring for others. It's not about turning off our emotions or disconnecting from love. No, it's about understanding that we, ourselves, have the power to find the things we need within us. It's about coming to terms with the fact that we are whole, we are enough, and we do not need another person to define our worth or to fill the gaps in our emotional lives. And although I know from personal experience that this journey is incredibly difficult and often painful, I can tell you that it is one of the most empowering transformations you can ever undergo. It's not just about detaching from someone else, it's about rediscovering your strength, your voice, and your ability to create the emotional balance and life that you truly deserve. This transformation is one of the most beautiful gifts we can give ourselves. It is the moment when we truly realize that we have everything we need to be happy and whole right inside of us. And that realization, although it may feel overwhelming at first, is what ultimately leads us to inner peace, emotional stability, and the ability to love ourselves fully. Emotional detachment doesn't mean withdrawing or turning away from love. It means realizing that the love we seek, the validation we crave, and the security we need are all things that we can cultivate within ourselves. This journey may be long, and it will certainly be filled with challenges, but it is a journey that leads to the truest form of self-love and emotional freedom we could ever hope to experience. The third step in this transformative detachment process is one of the most challenging yet profoundly freeing, breaking down the idealizations we've placed on others. It's something we all do, often without realizing it, especially in relationships that hold deep emotional significance. We get attached to the idea of the person, to the perfect image we've created in our minds of who they are and what they can offer us. We often place them on a pedestal, believing they are flawless, or that they possess some unique, irreplaceable qualities that no one else could ever match. This idealization becomes a powerful force, an illusion that blinds us to the reality of who the person truly is. And while it might feel comforting or even exhilarating to see someone as perfect, the truth is that idealization becomes a serious obstacle in the detachment process. It makes us feel like the person is irreplaceable, as though there is no one else who could ever come close to filling the role they've played in our lives. But here's the hard truth. This belief, this idealized image, is simply a construct of our mind, a distortion that keeps us emotionally tethered to someone who might not even be the person we think they are. Breaking down these idealizations is crucial to emotional detachment, and it's not easy. We must confront the reality that the person we are emotionally attached to isn't perfect, nor are they the sole source of our happiness or fulfillment. They have flaws, just like anyone else. They have limitations, things they cannot give us, or may not even be capable of providing. This realization isn't meant to diminish the appreciation or love we have for the person. On the contrary, it's about seeing them for who they truly are, in all their complexity. It's about acknowledging that they are human, flawed, imperfect, and just like us. This doesn't mean we stop valuing the good qualities in them. Rather, it means we stop placing them in an unrealistic position where they become the be-all and end-all of our emotional well-being. This process of demystifying the image we've created in our minds is incredibly freeing. It allows us to reduce the emotional power the other person holds over us. When we stop seeing them as a magical or perfect figure, we begin to realize that our happiness and emotional fulfillment don't need to rely solely on them. We start to see that we have the power within ourselves to create our happiness, to fill the voids within us, and to find emotional balance independent of someone else. And while breaking down idealization might initially feel like a loss or a painful realization, it is a profound step toward emotional freedom and self-empowerment. It's easy to become attached to the image we've crafted in our minds, especially when that person has been a source of love, comfort, or security. But idealizing someone, as comforting as it may feel in the moment, only keeps us stuck in an illusion. And once we begin to see them as they truly are, flaws, imperfections, and all, we can finally let go of the false narrative we've built. We start to understand that no one, not even the person we love, can bear the full weight of our emotional needs. It's only by breaking down these idealizations that we begin to free ourselves from the chains of unrealistic expectations and open ourselves up to more genuine, balanced relationships, starting with the one we have with ourselves. This shift in perspective doesn't mean we stop loving or caring for the other person. It simply means we allow ourselves to see them as they are beautifully imperfect, just like we are. We stop expecting them to be everything for us, and instead begin to rely on our inner strength and resilience. This is where true detachment begins, and it is where we find the space to grow, heal, and ultimately reconnect with our sense of wholeness. The fourth step in this deeply transformative detachment process is perhaps one of the most vital and empowering: reconnecting with ourselves. When we become deeply attached to someone, it's all too easy to lose sight of who we are. We get so absorbed in the relationship, so entangled in the connection we share with that person, that we begin to define ourselves solely through their presence and approval. We forget that at our core, we are complete individuals, worthy of love and happiness on our terms. Instead, we place our emotional stability, our sense of self, and our happiness in the hands of another person. The process of emotional detachment, then, is not just about letting go of someone. It's about rediscovering and reuniting with our own identity, remembering that we are whole, regardless of the relationship. Reconnecting with ourselves is about finding those parts of our lives that we've set aside in favor of the relationship. We need to rediscover the things that once brought us joy and fulfillment before we lost ourselves in the attachment. This could mean engaging in hobbies we've abandoned, diving into personal projects that light a fire within us, or even exploring self-reflective practices like meditation or journaling. These activities become our lifeline back to ourselves. They help us reconnect with the deeper parts of our identity, reminding us that our worth isn't wrapped up in someone else, but in who we are as individuals. These moments of self-reflection are more than just activities. They are steps toward reclaiming our emotional balance and rediscovering the person we've always been. Apart from the attachment, alongside this reconnection, it's essential to practice acceptance and compassion towards ourselves. Detaching emotionally from someone is not a one-time event, and it's certainly not an easy path to walk. It's a journey that can be filled with guilt, sadness, and frustration, and it's easy to fall into the trap of self-judgment. We may chastise ourselves for not letting go sooner, or feel weak for depending on someone else for so long. But here's the truth. Emotional detachment is a gradual process. It takes time, patience, and, most importantly, kindness toward ourselves. We must allow ourselves to feel the emotions that come with this transition without judgment. Self-compassion means embracing our emotions and acknowledging that it's okay to not have all the answers, to not have everything figured out immediately. Each step we take, whether it's small or large, is valuable. It's about moving forward at our own pace, allowing ourselves to process, heal, and evolve in the way that feels right for us. There's a deep and often overlooked aspect of emotional detachment that involves learning to find peace in our solitude. For many, the thought of being alone can be terrifying. We fear loneliness, and we often think that without another person, we are incomplete. But here's where the magic happens. It's in those moments of solitude that we truly have the opportunity to know ourselves, to nurture our hearts, and to strengthen our inner peace. Solitude is not a state of emptiness. It's a space where we can heal, grow, and connect with the essence of who we are. It's in the quiet moments of being alone that we can listen to our hearts, rediscover what brings us joy, and cultivate a sense of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. In solitude, we learn that we are enough, just as we are. This process of emotional detachment does not happen overnight. It's a slow, often painful journey, but with each step we move closer to emotional independence and a more fulfilled life. And when we begin to stop projecting onto others the things we need, when we cease idealizing the people we love, and when we learn to be at peace with ourselves, detachment becomes not just possible, but deeply liberating. This is the key. Emotional detachment isn't a loss, it's a gain. It's the start of a new, healthier relationship with ourselves and the chance to experience love in a more authentic, balanced way. We no longer depend on others to define our worth, and in turn, we can love in a way that is free from expectations, projections, and attachments. Now that we've touched on the deep roots of attachment and how they influence our emotional well-being, it's time to move forward and talk about practical solutions. Detaching emotionally doesn't happen in an instant, but there are specific strategies that can help you take those first crucial steps toward true emotional independence. These strategies will help you navigate the challenging road ahead, allowing you to move toward a future where your happiness and emotional stability are not tethered to anyone else, but are entirely in your hands. The first step in emotionally detaching is to truly know yourself and understand the underlying reasons behind your attachment. It's a deeply introspective process, one that requires honesty and vulnerability. As we've seen, we often find ourselves seeking certain qualities in others that we feel are missing from our own lives. We project our unmet needs and desires onto them, hoping they will somehow fill the voids that we've been carrying for so long. The problem is, this attachment isn't about the person themselves. It's about what we believe they can give us, what we think we need from them to feel complete. So, the very first step in the detachment process is to pause and reflect on what you are truly seeking in that person. What is it that they represent to you? What is it that draws you to them so deeply? If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. One powerful technique to help with this reflection is something I wholeheartedly recommend: reflective writing. It's such a simple yet profoundly effective way to dig into your emotions, thoughts, and expectations. Take a notebook or a journal and start writing about your feelings, your thoughts, and your expectations toward that person. Let the words flow without judgment or filtering. Ask yourself some key questions, such as, what do I truly need from this relationship? Is it love that I'm after, or am I searching for something deeper, something more specific like validation, security, or a sense of purpose? These questions may feel difficult at first, but trust me, they are crucial in the process of understanding what's driving your emotional attachment. As you write, you might begin to notice patterns in your responses, things you hadn't realized before. Maybe you discover that you're not looking for love in its purest sense, but rather looking for someone to fill the void left by unmet needs from the past. Maybe you realize that your attachment is rooted in a desperate need for validation or acceptance, and not necessarily because the person is an ideal match for you. Writing down your thoughts allows you to step outside of yourself and see your situation from a more objective perspective. It offers you the opportunity to shine a light on those hidden parts of your emotional landscape that you've kept tucked away, possibly out of fear or denial. This process of self-reflection is incredibly eye-opening, and it helps you understand what aspects of your life truly require your attention. What needs within you have remained unfulfilled for far too long. Recognizing these unmet needs is the first step toward healing, because once you know what's missing within you, you can begin to work on fulfilling those needs from within rather than seeking someone else to do it for you. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy healthy, supportive relationships. It simply means that you stop relying on others to complete you. You become your source of strength and emotional fulfillment. The beauty of reflective writing is that it brings clarity. It allows you to gain a deeper understanding of your emotional landscape and equips you with the awareness needed to make conscious, healthy choices moving forward. So, if you find yourself deeply attached to someone and unsure why, try sitting down with a notebook and pouring your heart out. You might be surprised by what you uncover. By recognizing and addressing the needs that you've been projecting onto someone else, you can start to heal, detach, and ultimately build a more balanced relationship with yourself and others. The second step in this deeply transformative process of emotional detachment is to strengthen your emotional independence. This step is all about learning to embrace your own company and realizing that you are fully capable of experiencing joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction on your own. It's about discovering that your sense of happiness doesn't have to be dependent on anyone else, and that your life can be rich, meaningful, and complete, even without the constant presence of another person. Emotional independence isn't about shutting yourself off from relationships or becoming distant. It's about reclaiming your inner power and learning to live fully, grounded in your sense of self-worth and purpose. To begin strengthening your emotional independence, it's essential to dedicate time to activities that help you feel good about yourself and nurture your personal growth. This doesn't have to be anything grand or complicated sometimes. It's the simple things that make the biggest difference. For example, try revisiting hobbies or interests that you may have set aside over time. Perhaps you once enjoyed painting, writing, or playing a musical instrument, but stopped because you became caught up in the demands of a relationship. Now is the time to rediscover those passions. The process of reconnecting with these activities will remind you of the joy they once brought you and the sense of fulfillment that comes from expressing yourself creatively or pursuing something you truly love. In addition to rekindling your passions, it's also helpful to set personal goals. These goals can be big or small, whether it's learning a new skill, advancing in your career, or simply making a commitment to take better care of your health. Engage in activities that help you feel physically well, such as exercise, yoga, or meditation. These practices not only enhance your physical well-being, but also foster mental clarity, self-awareness, and emotional balance. Whether you're hitting the gym, taking long walks, or practicing mindfulness, these moments of self-care will remind you that you are capable of finding peace and satisfaction within yourself without needing someone else to provide it for you. These moments of connection with yourself, whether through hobbies, personal growth, or self-care, will serve as constant reminders that you have a rich, meaningful life outside of any relationship. You are more than the sum of your attachments to others. You are a whole person with unique qualities, talents, and passions that deserve to be nurtured and celebrated. As you begin to nurture your own happiness and emotional well-being, you'll start to feel a shift. The need to cling to someone else will naturally diminish, because you will no longer feel like your fulfillment is tied to someone else's presence or approval. This transformation is incredibly empowering. The more emotionally independent you become, the less you will rely on external validation to feel worthy or loved. Instead, You'll realize that the love and validation you've been seeking all along were within you. You'll find yourself standing taller, with a deeper sense of confidence and self-assurance, knowing that you are enough just as you are. As you strengthen your emotional independence, you'll notice that you start to approach relationships from a place of strength and self-awareness. You'll be able to love more freely without the fear of losing yourself in the process. Ultimately, you'll find that emotional independence isn't about shutting others out. It's about becoming the fullest, most authentic version of yourself, capable of experiencing love and joy on your terms. The third step in the process of emotional detachment is to use self-knowledge techniques that help you connect with your deepest emotions. Once you've begun to reflect on your feelings and started to strengthen your emotional independence, it's time to dig even deeper. Understanding ourselves fully requires a deeper connection to our inner world, and various tools and techniques can help facilitate this process. In addition to reflective writing, which is a powerful way to bring your thoughts to the surface, other tools can provide insights into your emotional landscape, revealing hidden feelings and patterns that may still be influencing your attachments. One technique that I've found incredibly insightful is dream analysis. Dreams often serve as a direct channel to our unconscious mind. They can reveal emotional patterns, unresolved issues, and even hidden desires that we might not be aware of in our waking lives. Dreams are like emotional clues, and keeping a dream journal can help you track recurring themes or symbols. By reflecting on your dreams and analyzing them, you may uncover parts of yourself and your relationships that you've been blind to, allowing you to gain a deeper understanding of why you're emotionally attached and what unresolved feelings might still be influencing your attachment. For example, you might start noticing patterns in your dreams that symbolize insecurity, fear of abandonment, or even longing for validation. These insights can be incredibly valuable as they give you the clarity you need to address the underlying emotional wounds that are fueling your attachment. Another incredibly powerful technique is visualization. Imagine for a moment that you are free from the emotional dependency you've been carrying. Picture yourself fully letting go of that attachment. Visualize your life without the weight of emotional neediness, without constantly relying on another person to feel happy or fulfilled. Picture the details of this new life. How would you feel? How would your relationships change? What would you do with the time and energy you once spent focusing on the other person? Visualizing a life of emotional freedom helps create a clear mental image of what peace and balance could look like in your life. It reinforces the idea that you don't need anyone else to fill the gaps inside you, and it helps to internalize the belief that it's possible to live in a state of emotional well-being that doesn't rely on external validation. This practice can be transformative because it shifts your focus from what you're losing to what you are gaining, a life of emotional independence, peace, and self-fulfillment. By using these self-knowledge techniques, dream analysis, visualization, and others like meditation or body awareness practices, you can connect more deeply with your emotions. These tools don't just help you understand your feelings on a surface level, but they allow you to dive into the subconscious patterns that have been shaping your attachments and your emotional responses. By exploring these hidden parts of yourself, you'll uncover new insights, shed light on unconscious motivations, and gain the power to heal old wounds that might still be influencing your relationships. This deeper self-awareness not only empowers you to detach emotionally, but also strengthens your connection to your true self, making it easier to move forward with a sense of clarity and emotional freedom. The fourth step in the process of emotional detachment is to develop acceptance and compassion toward yourself. This is one of the most important and often overlooked steps because, let's face it, emotional detachment isn't a quick fix or a linear process. It's not something that happens overnight. It's likely that as you move through this journey, you'll encounter ups and downs, moments of frustration, and at times even doubts about whether you're doing the right thing, you may find yourself questioning if you're truly making progress, or wondering if you're ever going to fully let go. These emotions are not only normal, they're part of the process. And that's why developing an attitude of acceptance and compassion toward yourself is so essential. Acceptance means acknowledging that this journey is not the same for everyone, and it's certainly not something that can be rushed. There's no magical moment or perfect timeline when emotional detachment will occur. It's a process that's unique to each person, and it requires patience, self-awareness, and understanding. So, instead of rushing or forcing yourself to feel like you've arrived at emotional freedom, learn to accept where you are right now. If you experience setbacks or moments of vulnerability, don't judge yourself for them. Don't allow those moments to become sources of shame or self-criticism. Rather, see them as part of the ebb and flow of healing, a natural and necessary part of the process. Allow yourself to feel without judgment, and recognize that every emotion you experience is a valid part of your journey. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Practicing self-compassion means permitting yourself to feel your emotions fully without the harsh inner critic that so often tells us that we should be further along by now, or that we're weak for feeling vulnerable. Instead of scolding yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed or questioning your ability to detach, try to approach those moments with gentleness. View them as opportunities for learning, growth, and self-discovery. You might find that instead of feeling discouraged, you can embrace those difficult moments with kindness, as they are a sign that you're doing the deep emotional work needed to free yourself. Self-compassion helps you stay grounded and reminds you that healing is not about perfection. It's about progress, however slow it may feel at times. One way to practice self-compassion is through mindfulness practices, such as meditation or conscious breathing. These practices help you center yourself in the present moment and remind you that every small step you take in the direction of emotional detachment is valuable. When you feel overwhelmed or frustrated, take a few deep breaths and remind yourself that you're doing the best you can. You can say to yourself, "This is hard, but I'm not giving up. I am moving forward at my own pace." This kind of gentle affirmation is incredibly powerful because it reinforces the idea that emotional detachment is an act of self-love. It's not about pushing yourself to the limit, but about taking care of your emotional well-being and honoring your journey. Remember, there is no rush to achieve detachment. Each small step you take, whether it's letting go of one little attachment or allowing yourself to feel without guilt, is an important victory. Self-compassion will help you move forward with grace and perseverance, and it will keep you focused on the fact that emotional freedom isn't about being perfect. It's about being kind to yourself, embracing where you are, and celebrating the progress you make, no matter how small. Through acceptance and compassion, you'll learn to detach from the pressure of perfection and embrace the process with an open heart, knowing that every step forward brings you closer to the peace and freedom you deserve. The 5th step in the emotional detachment process is setting healthy boundaries, both with the other person and with yourself. Boundaries are essential in protecting your emotional well-being and preventing your feelings from becoming overwhelming. Without clear boundaries, it's easy to become emotionally enmeshed, especially in relationships that carry a lot of emotional weight. Setting boundaries allows you to create the necessary space to heal, reflect, and focus on your growth, while still respecting your own needs and limits. Start by setting clear boundaries around the time and energy you dedicate to thinking about that person or engaging with them, particularly if you're still in contact. It's crucial to be intentional about how much emotional energy you're giving to the relationship. For instance, you might decide to reduce the frequency with which you check their social media accounts. While it's tempting to stay updated on their life, Constantly checking their posts or following their every move only prolongs your emotional attachment and keeps you from fully detaching. You might also set a rule for yourself to limit the amount of time you spend talking about your relationship with close friends. While it's important to have support, talking about the person endlessly can keep the attachment alive and prevent you from moving forward. Setting these boundaries is not about being cold or harsh, it's about giving yourself the space you need to heal. These boundaries are an act of self-care, allowing you to shift your focus back to yourself and start reclaiming your emotional energy. This means stepping away from the emotional pull of the relationship, even if you're still in contact with the person. It doesn't necessarily mean cutting them out completely, but it does mean that you're taking control of your emotional environment. For example, you might decide to limit the number of times you interact with them in a week, or to only engage in conversations that are neutral and don't stir up emotional turbulence. As you set these boundaries, you'll begin to notice a shift. The intensity of your attachment will start to reduce, and you'll find it easier to focus on your own needs, desires, and goals. This space is essential for your healing, and over time, it will allow you to strengthen your emotional independence. Setting boundaries helps you regain control over your emotions and gives you the freedom to process the relationship more healthily. You'll begin to realize that while the person may have played a significant role in your life, you can exist, grow, and thrive independently of them. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness or rejection. They're a healthy practice of self-respect and self-preservation. By setting them, you're not only protecting your emotional space, but also allowing yourself to step back and gain perspective on the relationship. You're allowing yourself to heal, rediscover your own identity, and create the emotional space necessary for self-growth. As you continue to enforce these boundaries, you'll find that emotional detachment becomes easier, and you will gain the clarity and strength needed to move forward, more fully connected to yourself and less dependent on the relationship for your happiness. The sixth step in the process of emotional detachment is to practice gratitude and focus on the present. This step is crucial because often emotional attachment is fueled by our fixation on the past or our fears and hopes for the future. We find ourselves replaying happy moments, imagining how things could have been, or worrying about what's ahead. These thoughts keep us emotionally tethered to someone or something, preventing us from truly letting go. The key to breaking this cycle is to train ourselves to live in the present and find contentment with what we have right now. Practicing gratitude is one of the most effective strategies for grounding yourself in the present moment. A simple yet powerful practice is to write down 3 things each day for which you feel grateful. These don't need to be grand or life-changing. Sometimes the most meaningful moments are the small ones. Perhaps it's a moment of peace in the morning, a conversation with a friend, or something you accomplished that day, no matter how small it might seem. Writing down these moments of gratitude helps shift your focus away from the past or future and toward the richness of your current life. It reminds you that you already have a full, meaningful life, one that doesn't rely on another person to feel complete. Gratitude helps break the cycle of longing for something that may not even exist anymore, allowing you to reconnect with the beauty and satisfaction of the present. By focusing on what you have now, you slowly reduce the emotional need to seek satisfaction from someone else or to fantasize about an idealized future. Focusing on the present and cultivating gratitude shifts your energy inward, encouraging self-reflection and acceptance. As you practice this daily habit, you begin to realize how much you already have and how many small joys exist in your life that may have been overlooked when you were emotionally consumed by past attachments. This shift in focus empowers you to stop seeking external sources of happiness because you begin to understand that you already hold the power to create a fulfilling life within yourself. To understand how emotional detachment works in practice, it's valuable to look at real-life examples of people who have successfully gone through this process. These stories may vary in their details, but they all highlight a powerful truth. while emotional detachment is undoubtedly challenging, it is entirely possible to free yourself from unhealthy relationships and dependencies. By focusing on self-awareness, personal growth, and emotional healing, you can build a healthier relationship with yourself and ultimately with others. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Let's imagine a person who spent several years deeply attached to a romantic relationship. At first, there were moments of joy, connection, and love, but over time, the relationship began to generate deep insecurity. Each argument or period of distance sparked intense fear of abandonment, and the person found themselves trapped in a cycle of emotional dependency. Despite numerous attempts to detach emotionally, each time they tried to distance themselves from their partner, they felt as though they were losing a vital part of who they were. The fear of losing the relationship or of not being enough without it kept pulling them back in. It wasn't love alone that kept them in this relationship. Over time, they began to realize that they had projected their unresolved insecurities, fears, and unmet emotional needs onto their partner. They were using the relationship to fill gaps within themselves that they hadn't yet addressed. It was a painful but powerful realization. With this newfound self-awareness, they decided to embark on the path of emotional detachment. This journey started with facing their fears, understanding the root of their emotional dependence, and recognizing that they had the power to heal and fill those voids within themselves, independent of the relationship. Through introspection, self-compassion, and focusing on gratitude for the present, they gradually built emotional independence. They learned to let go of the past and stop living in an imagined future. Slowly but surely, they broke free from the emotional cycle that had once seemed so unshakable. In time, they not only liberated themselves from emotional dependency, but also began to form healthier, more balanced relationships moving forward. Their journey illustrates that emotional detachment isn't just about walking away from someone. It's about rediscovering yourself, healing your wounds, and learning to live fully in the present. This process, though difficult, is a transformative journey toward greater emotional freedom, where you are no longer bound by past attachments or future anxieties, but instead empowered to live a life grounded in self-love and inner peace. The 7th step in this process of emotional detachment involved keeping a journal where they could express their emotions, thoughts, and the underlying reasons for their dependency every day. This practice became an invaluable tool in their self-discovery journey. As they wrote about their feelings, their frustrations, and the emotional turmoil they were experiencing, they began to uncover something profound. Much of their attachment was driven by a deep-seated need for validation. For so long, they had convinced themselves that their worth was intrinsically tied to being loved by someone else, that their identity and emotional stability depended on the approval and affection of another person. This realization was a pivotal moment. By becoming aware of this belief, they were able to start questioning it, slowly unraveling the notion that their worth could only come from external sources. This awareness allowed them to begin working on strengthening their self-esteem, piece by piece. They began to understand that their worth wasn't something that could be measured by someone else's love or opinion, and this insight gradually helped them reclaim their sense of self. This journey wasn't quick or painless, but with each passing day, they felt a little more empowered to stand on their own and nurture the self-love and validation that had always been within them. Another compelling example is that of someone who, after a long and meaningful relationship, couldn't stop thinking about their ex-partner. Despite the relationship having ended, their mind seemed trapped in a cycle of nostalgia, repeatedly replaying happy memories and wondering how things could have been different. Every moment felt steeped in regret and longing, and no matter how hard they tried to move forward, their thoughts kept returning to the past. It felt like their heart was still tethered to a memory that no longer had a place in their present life. In their journey to detach, They began practicing visualization as a daily exercise. Each day they would sit quietly and imagine what their life would be like without being haunted by memories of their ex. They pictured a life filled with new opportunities, new projects, and personal growth. When those nostalgic thoughts would come flooding in, thoughts that made them ache for what was lost, they worked to replace them with vivid images of their future, filled with satisfaction, meaning, and joy. Little by little, the grip of the past started to loosen. They began to regain control over their emotions, and instead of being swept away by memories, they learned to redirect their energy toward their dreams and aspirations. Over time, they found that detaching emotionally from their past allowed them to open themselves up to a future that was full of possibility. Finally, let's consider the case of someone who experienced deep and overwhelming grief after losing a loved one. The pain of their absence was all-consuming, and moving forward seemed impossible. Every day felt like a struggle to escape the shadow of loss. And each object or place that reminded them of that person triggered intense emotional pain. It was as if the physical absence of their loved one left a void that nothing could fill. Despite their best efforts to heal, the grief felt inescapable. To begin their healing process, they turned to Jungian introspection techniques. They started analyzing their dreams and paying attention to the symbols that appeared. Through this reflective practice, they began to identify the qualities that their loved one had represented for them, perhaps love, safety, or guidance. Over time, they understood that their attachment wasn't just to the person themselves, but to the aspects of themselves they had projected onto that relationship. This insight was incredibly freeing, as it allowed them to honor the memory of their loved one without being shackled by the pain of their absence. By acknowledging the emotional patterns at play, they were able to build a deeper connection with themselves, allowing them to move forward with a greater sense of peace and emotional resilience. Each of these examples demonstrates that emotional detachment is not an act of rejection, but a powerful way to reconnect with oneself and rediscover one's worth. These stories of transformation show that detachment is not about forgetting or ceasing to love, but about creating the emotional space to move forward in a healthier, more balanced, and fulfilled way. Rather than feeling like a loss, detachment becomes a gift, a chance to reclaim your emotional independence and reconnect with the fullness of who you are. Detachment is not a rejection of love or a sign of emotional coldness. On the contrary, it is an act of profound courage and respect for your well-being. It's recognizing that, while someone may have been an important part of your story, your peace, your sense of self, and your emotional fulfillment are ultimately your responsibility. They cannot and should not depend on anyone else. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to regain that control. Picture yourself waking up each day feeling complete, without the anguish of unreciprocated love, without the weight of memories that no longer serve you. Instead, you would step into each new day free from the chains of dependency, carrying only the love and strength you've cultivated within yourself. What would it mean for you to live with that kind of emotional freedom, knowing that you hold the keys to your peace, joy, and fulfillment? As we've explored together, emotional detachment is a powerful, transformative journey, one that allows us to reconnect with ourselves, regain control over our emotions, and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Whether it's through practicing gratitude, setting boundaries, or using introspective techniques like journaling or visualization, each step brings us closer to emotional independence and self-love. So, what have you learned so far? How can you apply these steps to your own life and relationships? I'd love to hear from you. In the comments below, share one thing you've learned and will bring into practice as you continue your journey toward emotional freedom. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Your support means the world to us, and together we can create a community focused on growth, healing, and personal empowerment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.